Welcome to Just Three Workplace Gurus, a podcast about the real world of work. I'm Mike.
I'm Amy.
I'm Vivian.
And today we welcome two friends of the podcast, Jamal McNeil, an independent consultant specializing in workplace strategy and experience, and David Gray, real estate tenant rep and workplace strategist with Colliers International. They are also both co-hosts of a popular IFMA Workplace Evolutionaries MoshPit, which we'll spend some time learning more about today. And we've been fortunate enough to be guests on the Mosh Pit. Full disclosure here, we recorded an episode with David and Jamal a few weeks ago, but it got lost in the ether and we couldn't find a way to retrieve it. So here we are again, which in my mind is a good thing because I like these guys and I'm glad to be chatting with them anyway. So welcome to you both.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thought we would start out with maybe you telling us a little about your background and what connected to you to corporate real estate and workplace. And then we'll dive in a little bit to what the Mosh Pit is for our listeners who don't know. Jamal, you want to kick it off?
So my background started in the built environment roughly 15 years ago with clients, complex clients in hospitals and infrastructure. So I was looking at what type of systems are carrying local and wide area network traffic, and particularly that traffic that's critical in nature. From there, I ended up going to technology and workplace in order to understand workforces. We're all about supporting the people in these enterprises because that's where the magic happens for customers and shareholders. So understanding the nature of work, is it complex or is it routine? Is it collaborative or is it focus-based? What are the primary characteristics of culture and how does that inform workplace? We would look at, are they a command and control type organization, a highly collaborative organization, or a compete organization? Looking at priorities as well. All of those details as it relates to a workforce all the way down to teams helps us understand how to best inform programs about space and about the work that's taking place when you're talking about hybrid nature and, of course, the onset of AI. So that's where I came in, Mike, really leveraging technology in order to understand workforces and inform workplace programs.
Great, thanks. And David?
I'm just excited to be here. I mean, after slinging real estate for occupiers only for over a third of a century, a normal person could be tired, but it's functions like this that energize me. Getting 5 future of work experts together to chew the fat. This is fantastic. I won't even talk about my real estate metrics. Who cares about 1.2 billion in leases? It's not a big deal. Who cares about 553 leases? That's not important. I don't want to get into the metrics.
That's pretty awesome numbers.
Those are some
But it's
amazing
pretty good
numbers of
metrics.
experience,
I mean, honestly,
though.
come on.
Yeah, really.
There's a lot of gray hair. You're absolutely right, Amy. Jamal and I love being here, and how we got to know a number of you much better is jumping on to our Mosh Pit. And the Mosh Pit is our live collaborative podcast, if you will. And the key is we don't know where it's going to go. We threw up a topic last Friday, was at the 203rd pit, 253 since the pandemic dropped.
Amazing.
Incredible. I mean, we still, Jamal and I kind of look at each other like we did right now. We were on a Zoom, and either John Lucas or Larry Morgan, two moguls in the built environment and getting things right with portfolios. Everyone's talking. Stop it. It's like a mosh pit in here. I think Larry Morgan said it. Like a mosh pit. Just like right now, Jamal and I did like this side look. We had to be looking at each other's eyes in the two-dimensional world. That's right. We said, this is it. And sure enough, we knew it would just go for a few shows and we'd get together. We had like 5 mapped out. So we said, we'll just do this 5 Fridays in a row. And then this pandemic thing, trust me, it's going away. People are going to be back in the office. Everything's going to be fine. And, we kept it going for 253 episodes, Jamal. It's crazy.
David, it might be helpful for some of our listeners who aren't familiar with the Mosh Pit if you can tell a little bit about how it got started to where you are today at 253 episodes. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, it got started just, I kind of went to the context. The content was, neither of us, Jamal and I, are not webinar fans. We don't like the one-way world or the planned presentation at our favorite workplace conferences that we go to. And then there's like 2 seconds left at the end for questions, and you approach the mic, and it's, linear back and forth, maybe. So we saw a 5-part series about the 11 core competencies of facilities management lined up, and we said, yeah, I think it's great they're doing that during the start of the spring pandemic thing, but we need to have an interactive one. So we created a Zoom link starting immediately after their 1 hour and just marketed to those same people. And a number of the speakers came on, and they were talking about HVAC one way, and why it's so important, and watch out for Legionnaire's disease because your systems are going to be shut down for quite a while now, et cetera, et cetera. And then we had this interactive discussion where 30 people are talking at the same time. So we did it, now answering the question, we did it as a service to pay a little bit more attention to the content and the opinions of all those people in the audience. And our hunch was right. After a few of those episodes, Jamal and I got together for an iced tea, and over a couple of iced teas, we said, you know what, there's something here, because there's so much talent. There were a lot of mechanical people for that discussion that was led by a seasoned pro in the Silicon Valley. There were a lot of differing opinions that were shared, and it turned out to be very collaborative, and we ideated with one another, and we said, oh, let's just keep this thing going. So that's how it got started. And then we sort of matured and made sure we danced through the content: built environment, portfolio management, human-centric workplace, command and control workplace, and the rest is history.
Jamal,
Let me add a little bit of context to that, because I think I wouldn't want you to diminish your contribution. You manage the mosh pit like the pros that you are, and it's very impressive. I'm always amazed at how well you two click with each other, how you do all of that, bring the right people together. I'm an early mosh pitian, as we refer to them. I don't remember the first episode. I'm not sure where I came in, but David invited me. And I have to say, I've said this many times to people, I was not working. And so to be invited to this really helped me stay connected to my workplace community. And it gave me a bunch of people to talk to on a Friday when I couldn't really leave the house much. And I loved it. And I have been an aficionado ever since. I think I missed last week's, but generally I'm on most of the time now, and I love it. And I'm going to guess I've been on at least 200 of them, maybe more, I don't know, but I love it. And now we of course introduced Vivian and Amy to the mosh pit, so they are joining us as well. We got to speak a few weeks ago as a team, which was a lot of fun, and so I love this collaboration that we do. End of my speech.
love it. Jamal, I have a question for you. Something caught my ear when you were kind of saying what your background was, et cetera. It's sort of, I think there's a piece of management of workplaces in general that pay homage to the people, right? Because at the end of the day, we want a great experience. We want productive people. We want an environment that fosters creativity and collaboration and takes the mission of whatever organization that is, be fulfilled, and everybody is great. But I really love that you broke it out into, like, we have to understand so many different components to be able to do that, right? Can you talk just a little bit more about that? Because I think that is a real missing piece of the puzzle, that it's not a one size fit all, right? And it is super custom. I mean, there are certain things, right? You have a chair, you have a desk, you have whatever, you need good air quality, you have certain things for basic safety. But then it goes way beyond that. Can you just talk a little bit more about that? Because I'm fascinated, and I think that's drives a lot of this, and I'm sure this has also come up a lot in your mosh pit uh, sessions. But anyway, I'll stop talking now. Let you talk.
No, no, please. I enjoy you talking, and I enjoy your questions. A very good question, and one I believe is often overlooked. We talk about experience and how people feel about a particular place. Do you feel welcomed? That type of thing. But at the end of the day, there's an operating model that's taking place within the corporate building, and the environment, the program needs to support said operating model. Many organizations don't really understand what that operating model, what's the nature of the work, who's working with which teams, and is that valuable? Any of this valuable? At the meeting time, is the meeting time spent valuable? So we may be hustling to get additional meeting rooms because they're all booked, but find out in terms of operations, it's really detrimental to the enterprise. So it's beneficial to understand that operating model and then support it appropriately with space and workplace programs. That's where that came from. And if you dig that, Vivian, you would have really liked it when Melissa Marsh came. Melissa Marsh and help me out, David. The other I cannot think right now. We had a group of anthropologists come on, and
Anthropologist. Oh my gosh, I love
yeah,
this. Okay.
come on to the mosh pit and talk about ethnographies. Melissa Marsh, they've come on and talked about behavioral studies and its relationship to workplace and taking a more intentful and academic approach towards the design.
Wow. That must have been fascinating. Okay, we'll have to go dig that up in the archives.
Yes,
That's pretty
yes.
cool. And
One
then,
of
of
the things
course,
that I think David and Jamal have done really well is bring a diversity of participants. So there are HR people, there are engineers, there are anthropologists, there are authors. You can expound on that, but it's a really diverse crowd. And I think that's one of the things that makes it such a success and such an interesting hour and a half out of your Friday.
Yeah, it really is one of those rooms where there's no protected topic. We throw it in the center of the room and the room pressure tests it. And it's one of those things that has you questioning what you believed when you walked into the room. And to the diversity of the mindsets that are there, we do bring IT, we bring HR, we bring FM, we bring CRE, because and we bring the front line in because none of those disciplines can make sense of workplace on their own. So we make it a point to bring everyone into the mix and really have a authentic conversation that puts skylights and decks on these various silos that we have to grant access to the other functions that we don't necessarily see on a day-to-day basis.
yeah, and then I think that if we could bottle that and bring that to organizations, then we really have something. Because I don't know about you guys, but I know, we do ergonomics, wellness, safety for consultation, for program development, et cetera, at performance-based ergonomics. And so often everybody's just so siloed. And I know that's not limited to just the health and safety realm. We see this pretty much, the vantage point of going into so many companies and who are beautifully run, by the way, in for the most part, but one team does not necessarily connect to the other. So there's gaps or there's overlap or there's redundancy or there's just not working in consonance. Let's put it that way. So I think that's like that next leap, take all this talent in the room and then how do we now, I guess that's part of why you have the room you have, but getting leaders to now integrate that.
And we're seeing examples of that, every week. You will walk through a space and I was influenced by the collection of the people from previous mosh pits and the thought of they have these OKRs, they have a mission statement, they're trying to achieve these things. And yet there's a disconnect as you walk through a company and that everyone's just worried about their particular silo. What is their performance review in 2.5 months going to look like if they don't hit their personal metrics? So you see some of the disconnects of what the whole is after versus what the individual is after. And in the past, for the first third of a century, I didn't pay too much attention to that. The CFO would say, listen, make sure that real estate keeps the hit in Q2 and it doesn't creep into Q3. We have an important wrap up at the end of Q3. So you get this messaging, and then I've got to, and then the human centric talk is at the start and it goes out the window. So how do you drive back to that, have these multiple layers going on at the same time? And you have to be, a bit of both a fly on the wall and a fly in their ear and say, hey, didn't we these three criterias? It wasn't just innovation, safety, psychological safety, but it was also the idea that we'll keep that financial hit in Q3. And so they said, okay, great, that's terrific. Wait, back to the wellness. What were we saying about that? They forget. So many companies forget about the initial requirement and the layers that they built on these values that are on their website that they push externally, but they're not doing it internally. And so being part of the pit it's been a little coach to me. I think Jamal said it several times. It's not just the wide breadth of people. that we have, but it's the ideation between them. So if someone in charge of engineering at their startup bounces into the pit and says, well, I used to be doing this over at a large semiconductor company, and here's how we would handle workplace. And they had this grassroots approach that is all about the metrics and measuring and not about people. And then someone would say, well, what if we layered people into that? Says the HR person who says, I got to have my team's back, but I want to have everybody's back in the organization. And you kind of see the different thoughts find an ideation in the middle. It's been terrific.
So I'm curious, we all know that, workplace is evolving every second. So we have this big event, COVID disrupts everything, right? And then you have all these principals that now have to adapt to the fact that everybody's sitting in their home. And then we spent a few years with that tug of war between employee and employer. Come back to the office. No, come back. No, I don't want to commute. You have to. And I have noticed, I don't know if you would agree, but this year, 2025, did see the needle move. Now you have to be here 2 days a week. That 2 days a week became 3 days a week. We're starting to hear whispers next year of 4 days a week. At the same time, we have some companies who gave up their offices completely. So we are now 100% virtual. So just curious what you hear, what you see trending, what comes up in the mosh pit along those lines, and where we are, where we're heading, and challenges, because we now have such a variety of the way people are working, with hybrid sort of landing front and center.
I love that. Jamal, I'll try to keep this to 30 seconds, so cut me off. We've really seen that people come in and want to reveal that I only want to be in when I think it's necessary. And then they kind of get it out of their system. And then they say, well, you know what? Those water cooler moments, priceless. So we're anchored 3 days a week, Tuesday through Thursday. I do my time boxing for the week with that in mind. It was never like this in 2019. I'm ecstatic. This is wonderful. So when people reflect back on what life was like in 2019, when they commuted for sometimes an hour, maybe longer, right? Forever. Now they're like, wow,
Yeah.
I think I've got my life back. I think I can plan things a little bit easier than I could when I checked out for 5 days on the treadmill of work. Jamal, what do you think?
I think it's such a dynamic question. It's different for every organization. I do see a trend towards moving back to the office and mandates requiring people to come back to the office. I think what's different is companies are doing better at explaining why employees need to come back to the office and what they're looking to accomplish. I think that those that are responsible for workplace are really looking deeper and being more intentful in regards to how they design workplace and how the workplace serves the workforce. So that's what I'm seeing. A lot of people that were bogged down in more tactical affairs are starting to look to the more strategic initiatives in regards to how workplace can impact the bottom line for enterprises. I think a huge elephant in the room that we're not talking about yet is AI and its impact beyond large language models, and that also is having an impact on workplace and where people are conducting and how they're conducting their work and who it is, a biologic versus a non-biologic agent.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? How AI is, what's the impact you're hearing about or discussing or?
Well, and again, that has a range, and David, stop me or jump in when you like. The range is from those that aren't using AI very often, right? We've continued work and operations for a very long time before AI came, and it's not a necessity yet. But more and more, these workflows are being taken over by AI or agentic type agents, influences,
Yeah.
actors.
Yeah.
And so the work that's being done, we already talked about the behaviors that take place in the workplace and how you're trying to support those behaviors through a place. Those behaviors are going to be augmented by the new workforce. We'll call it non-biologic agents, AI, artificial intelligence. And that's going to have an impact on the programming for workplace moving forward, as well as scheduling, because you're now interacting with teams of agents as opposed to maybe a colleague. Companies are in various uh, stages of maturity as it relates to AI integration, and it's going to have an increasing impact on our programming moving forward. That's probably the safest way
I
to say
love
it.
that. I love that. I think we're just out of the gates is what we've heard 2 years ago. Someone who subsequently led 12, 13 pits with us on the topic of AI. So we have this consistency as we look back through those conversations. In fact, if we go to the first one, and I posted this on LinkedIn recently, just a little 30-second vignette. Interesting that we're in this situation where back then we're explaining what a prompt and a persona is. And I remember looking at the survey from those 100 people that registered, 50, 60 that came through excited to talk about AI for the first time. Very few were seeing anything in the workplace or using it. And fast forward to when we did the registration for last week, AI in review 2 years later, the responses is everybody is working on with their large language model of choice and cleaning up their emails and getting tasks done. And you can kind of see the continuum of those that have been doing it for a few years versus those who have been doing it for a few months. They're on that same curve. That's what we actually said in last Friday's pit. Somebody, I think our friend from the UK, would do Chatham House rules, so we won't mention any companies or individuals. But our friend from the UK said, survey says, it's growing exponentially at an individual level, and it's moving pretty slow at the corporate
Interesting.
level.
I think
So
you're right
we're
about
still
that.
doing, yeah. And that's it. That's my story, Joel.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yet another layer, another variable, another bucket.
And I believe, Vivian, it's related to your comment earlier about silos and functions. And that's how we came back from the Indian trading companies, right? It was based on the military, and there are different functions in military and corporations. I believe AI is going to do a considerable amount to flatten that and to make relationships where we didn't have them before, and to have to poke holes in those silos in order to make meaningful relationships of the data that each of those functions are collecting.
Yeah, and I think on a super, super fundamental level, it's also like improving the understanding of a lot of fear around AI, right? It's going to take my job. It's, whatever. Just, and I think behind that fear is just some confusion. I don't know how this applies to me as an individual. How does this apply as a company? As opposed to leveraging this as like a phenomenal tool, right? And I was talking to an educator who was saying, who is very, very pro AI and very pro AI for education. And the students themselves are resisting it, which is very interesting. No, it's cheating. No, it's bad for the environment. No, it's, all these negatives, which is very interesting. So I think that there's a lot of friction right now, which I think you're right. Over time, this will smooth out as it becomes more and more adopted. Anyway, just curious about your thoughts on that.
You bring up some great points, though. I mean, especially as it relates to operating a facility, we have to be concerned about a portion of that, and that's something I'm sure that's being baked into the plans, strategic plans moving forward.
Hey,
Jamal, on Friday, a number of people said, and you concurred, that they were 100% more productive now that they were able to leverage AI. I didn't make the comment, but because when it's bouncing around, our job is just to stretch the canvas, keep it stretched so other people can paint. But my thought at that moment was on a recent HVAC roof inspection, et cetera, it was a 10 man hour job, and the price was X to do it the traditional way. And now there's a couple of organizations out there that can do it in 1/10 the time. They go up, catch the image of all the serial numbers, put it through their version of the large language model, and come back and say, here's the condition of the units. And there's a lot of definition of, are we hallucinating? Is the data complete? And when you walk through and use these different filters, whether you're comparing leases or getting a good working order on a unit, you audit it the first time, so you do the same amount of work that you normally would do. You do those 10 hours, right? And then you see that, wow, in 1 hour, we were able to get up on the roof and put this report together that's just about identical to the 10-hour job. And I think that's the reality that we're in. And, we're trading in the printing press for the typewriter, for the laptop, and it's moving almost at that rate. And I think it's exciting.
I think it's
This is
exciting.
the glasses, right? The glass is half full. There's a hole in it, but there's a spigot turned on. So it's a little different. And I think it's time to learn how to swim, because you're going to be at the cup is
Exactly.
going to runneth over.
And, I've been accused of being a pathological optimist in my lifetime, which I think is actually quite accurate. And I look at that and I go, oh my gosh, from 10 hours to 1 hour, that's so positive. Like, look at how much more you can get done in those 9 other hours, whether you're the one who delivers that service or receiving that service. Like, to me, it keeps opening up space. Anyway, that's my take on it. People
Yeah,
argue.
if you're the one that if you're the one that leverages AI, you're going to do everybody's roof in the neighborhood, right? You're going to get up and tell them, here's the condition of those mechanical
Yeah, it's
units.
not taking away
That's
work, it's
so
adding work, I
embrace.
think. But that's me. I'm a half roll kind of gal.
I'll balance it out for you half full individuals. We do need to have some moniker of stoicism, of making sure we're not giving away the farm and a human is in the loop, and that we still maintain our ability to think and to act and do long math and long multiplication and division. Kind of reminds me. Have you all seen Wally? Have you seen Wally? And then Wally, they have this rendition of what a human is in the
Yes.
future
No.
where they're not doing anything. Yeah, we can't be like the Wally
We're
individuals.
not there in our floatable chairs with the big gulp and watching TV all day. Darn.
Well,
Okay, we
maybe
won't.
once or twice a week, just once in a while. I was going to add to that even we as a team, the gurus, have used a little bit of AI. Very recently, I put information about us as a team and our podcast into an AI tool and ask for recommendations to how to expand, how to get advertisers, blah blah blah. And I forget what the number. I asked 4 questions, so I asked a number of questions and gave it some parameters. We have 16 pages of notes to follow.
In
Now, it's an
4 seconds.
outline. We may not do
That's a
all of
lot
it,
of work to
but
do.
it's a lot of work, which is partly on me. But
Yeah, but
the
we had to
idea
research all
of
of
it
that.
as sort of an outline,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's at least giving us something to work from that we didn't have before, or we would have to pay a consultant to do. And we may still do that, but at least
We're
it's a
informed.
framework that we can go by, and we can talk about, page one and say we're going to do these 3 things, but not these 5 or whatever. But I'm fascinated by how it helps. I think there's just a lot of opportunity there in everything that we do. I do think, though, I wanted to bring this up. I think this is a challenge for a lot of businesses. And where I was last working, while we were very supportive of AI, the idea of using our proprietary information in a public tool was really tough. And so the company is in the process of developing an internal tool that they can use to manage data and sort of a framework for how to share data in a public tool that won't compromise the business in any way. So there's also that structure that you have to give legally to how to run a business and still use AI to help you with it. So I think there's a lot of work yet to do for a lot of people.
We're so early in this. Like, Lord knows what's going to be in 5 years, 10 years.
So early, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Right.
But Amy, what's your sort of like what you hear are or trends? I think that's the word I'm looking for, just in the office design world that you're either challenges people are having or things that are working or where you see this going.
Well, I think it's definitely helped us streamline some of the processes that might have been a little bit more time consuming. An example would be door counts, or different things like that. So we're able to take floor plans, and put them in, and it's definitely needs human interaction, right? Design is a very custom thing. It requires a lot of programming, a lot of conversations, but it does take some of the monotony out of the job. And so I think that's where it becomes very helpful. And I also think it helps in terms of speed to market on some of the initial conversations. So we use it a lot for thought starters as well. So customer comes to us and they're like, this is what we have in mind. And we then take that information. We start to try to devise what some images are of what that could look like. And you can use AI for that, right? Instead of that
Right.
used to be a lot of billable hours that we would have to go back to a client and either eat or charge. That just is part of a conversation starter. So this is allowing us to quickly go in and do a variety of different renderings and thought starters to get them started. It's definitely not there in terms of full design, though. There's a lot of nuances to that.
Yeah. But I think you're right. Once you can visualize something early, it really helps shape the direction something's going in.
Yeah, and it get does it in a faster way, which saves so much time. There's usually so much more back and forth, at the beginning stages, and now customers wanna get in. David, you know this. They wanna get in that space as quickly as possible, right? And so how do we really speed up that
Right.
process
And that's a win-win for everybody.
for everyone?
Interesting.
Yeah,
What
we enjoy right? We enjoy a lot of the mundane things that we do, we always have, there's but to be able to dial it out of the picture is what you're implying. So I'm not gonna eat those extra 8 or 10 hours, but the client's not gonna eat them either because they've gone away. And so I think we're moving to that purity of things becoming increasingly more strategic. So hats off to people that already have more than 10 years of work experience because they can fly with AI. I think we have to figure out how do we get our favorite Gen Z fans from age 22 to 28, how do we get them somewhere? How can they suck it up and intern in any aspect, in any vertical for a couple of years until they go, oh, I get it. This boomer and elderly Gen X don't realize that we can do the following things with the large language model. So they can do a lot of reverse mentoring. And I just went over to that because Jamal, you and I had such a blast when we did the two multi-generational talks, one down at Cornet's Summit and then another one up at Salesforce Tower. When you think back to those, what do you think? What do you think we've picked up in terms of the multi-generational workplace and the role of Gen Z?
One of the things I believe got picked up was the insight that Gen Z has. I mean, they're well-informed individuals. They don't necessarily have a lot of they don't have decades of experience. Yes, David mentioned that, and that is true. But they have so much information that they have access to and that they process so quickly, and they are really intent on not repeating the mistakes of their parents and getting caught up in, let's just say, profits over purpose. Purpose is really a real important topic for Gen Z, and it would behoove the baby boomers and Gen X to listen to that if you want to garner that talent that is there.
I was
So
impressed by
things
how
got picked up.
definitive they were. They know what they want and they know where they wanna go. And not a lot of us could have said that when we were between 22 and 28, we knew what we wanted, but they are very definitive, they're extremely articulate, and they've got a plan.
Which is
And they
great.
realize that they are very cognizant of the fact that enterprises are not loyal to them. They've seen their parents be laid off. They've
Mm.
seen, the lack of housing and finance available for them. So they're actually rather pessimistic.
It's interesting. There is pessimism,
Realistic.
but there's also I appreciate what you said. They're I think as a generation more purpose driven, right? There's a book that my husband read, and then he loved it so much he gave it to like everybody on his staff. But it's called Moral Ambition. I forgot who the author is, but it's really about that. Like how, finding your real purpose and how do you serve the world and community, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's very, very important to that generation.
I think it's fair to mention it's not a monolith. I mean, there are extremely pessimistic people and there are extremely optimistic people, just like there are in many generations. In fact, I find that the differences aren't really between the generations. Where generations makes a difference is just in the events that occur during your
Yeah,
formative
I
years
agree.
and how they have an impact on you.
Yeah, for sure.
But the range of personalities, there's more alike between certain boomers that are introspective and Gen Zs that are introspective or extroverts or any other
Yeah.
element of personality.
You're true, but the experience that formed this. So I'm just curious. Sorry, I keep asking all these questions, but you guys are inspiring. So how many episodes? 253? Is that what you're up to?
Online,
Online.
253.
Over 5 years. So I'm just curious for both of you. Obviously, you're dealing with so much talent in the room, so many different topics being discussed, so many different experts. Personally, like if you can say, here's the top three things that I've learned or grown the most from our own mosh pit. Jamal, what would that be for you? And David, what would that be for you? Just curious.
For me, it would be just to be quiet and let the room collaborate. I mean, it's the magic that has come. Businesses have been started, books have been started. There's a lot of inspiration from each other. We're all very valuable. We all have something to contribute. When we do, summation of all of our contributions is awesome.
I love that. You learn to be quiet. This is great. Okay, I love it. All right, you summed it into one beautiful one. David, what about for you?
So much. I think I'm cognizant of what I hear in the room and plagiarizing it. Take the content of an aha moment and it sticks with me. I brought up two of my favorite books, The Art of the Gathering, Priya Parker, and who did Atomic Habits? James Clear.
Atomic Habits is
Right. So
great.
those two books, and I brought them up and cited an example from each. We were kind of having a book club mosh pit, and I said,
great.
put these two together, and that's how you can influence workplace the best. And I said it, and then somebody else added to it, and I'm taking my notes, and then I went back and maybe a year later developed one of my AI agents to be an amalgamation of those two. Art of the Gathering, Priya Parker, amazing book. James Clear's Atomic Habits. Just do a little bit. You're not going to the gym, just put on your tennis shoes and try to go. And maybe the third or fourth time, you'll get 15 minutes. Don't try to save your entire body the first day. It's not too late. And so, right. And that Art of the Gathering is not just saying, hey, you should come to my party, but no, I want you to come to a gathering with intention. And I use those two together in an agent. And as I do it, as it cleans up my email, it reminds me that these are my OKRs. This is my objective. And that's been a beautiful thing I've both learned from the pit and some of the new technologies. I don't think I would have been as advanced with AI if we didn't have
all this exposure.
Dozens of friends coming into the room saying, oh, I do this and I do that. And here's how I change my Excel formatting for net present value. So we get into some minutia, but it's a lot of fun.
Love it. We'll put this in program notes, but how does our listeners or viewers find you if they want to check out the MoshPit?
It's the best thing to do is to check out a salutation on either of our emails, because Jamal and I have as a tagline, follow our newsletter, which I think all three of the gurus get once a week, unless you have it in spam. At least two are nodding. Okay.
Yes.
You go to your spam right now.
Oh no, I see it all the time.
We get your letter. I love it.
Getting that newsletter is it's so easy to do, and then you get the recap of the last one, a reference to a video. The video is posted on LinkedIn too. You can always search around different ways to find it. Getting involved with our newsletter is really ground zero.
Okay. All right. And
I would say attending an event. I mean, they are just so entertaining. You two really know how to pull out a good conversation out of people. So I really appreciate it. There's so many nuggets that I get out of it every single time. So thank you for what you're doing for our industry.
Really, thank you. And thank you for joining us today. And Mike, is there anything else you want to wrap up with? Because I know we're coming on time here.
What a generational comment.
That's it. I really appreciate you guys taking the time.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it. It's an honor.
Thank you.
I think what's fun about this conversation is that we share a similar goal. You two are hosting the Mosh Pit every Friday or every other Friday. We're doing this podcast every couple of weeks. The commitment to keep going and keep talking and keep exploring is a really great one. And you guys are very inspirational for all of us in what you've been doing. So thank you for that.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
And just with the time, just keep in mind, we are having mosh pits more and more, like Amy mentioned, in person. We had 3 or so successful ones in 25. We're looking at expanding those in 26, and just having dynamic conversations, for teams that want to have a spark and impact and move forward.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to try to
The live ones are really, really great. I had the good fortune to host a team before a live mosh pit recently. It was a great experience. Loved it. We got a lot out of it, actually.
Awesome.
It was a great
All right.
day.
I will come out to California and attend.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And
thanks
to our listeners for listening. And have a great day, everybody.
All right. We'll see you the next time.
Have a great one.
Thank you.